Hello and welcome to Phoenix Refueled, paving the way for the matriarchy, one body at a time. I'm Lindsay Evans.
I'm Ashley Nix, and what are we talking about today, Linz?
We're talking about whiteness. We're talking about what it means to be white in America. What is it? What does it mean to be white?
We've had a whole discussion prior to, so this is a great topic. Do you want to start? Do you want to?
Well, I started thinking about it. I'm feeling very all-American today. I started thinking about it because I've been reading a lot of feminist literature, but there's a quote by Angela Davis that says, in a racist culture, it's not enough to be non-racist. You need to be anti-racist. You must be anti-racist. And I was like, true. What does that mean exactly? What does it even mean to be white? Because sort of by definition, whiteness is kind of like the default. And it's not just whiteness. I mean, it's white, it's hetero, it's cis, it's able-bodied, it's thin. There's these things that are sort of the default expectation of what an American...
Like the standard of what should be, right? What everyone should aspire to be.
And then you kind of define yourself or your culture in the areas where you either completely line up with that or are different from that. Like you know when you're not that. Because it's made very apparent in our culture when you're not that.
Yes.
So that's what I was like, well, what does it even mean to be white? Because whiteness is so, I mean, it's like so amorphous. What does it even mean to be white? I don't know how much I had thought about it, but in my attempt to be anti-racist, not just non-racist, I thought it was worth investigating.
It is worth investigating. I had a friend of mine that he used to come over and we would just have like these deep conversations, and he was black and he grew up in Brooklyn, and we would have just really nice deep talks, and there's a moment that I told him, I said, I never thought about it like that. I said, I always view myself as like I'm a woman. And he was like, well, yes, historically that is actually like one of the first groups that is like othered, essentially, right? That is pushed out of. And I'm like, yes, and so is blackness, though. And I just remember in that moment being very grateful for our relationship, that we could sit and have those kinds of conversations, because it gave me such a different perspective, and it grew my mind and it really opened my eyes to my inherent privilege of being white. And of course, I grew up in Texas, so I've known I was I've known I was white. I knew what it meant to not be white, because of things that my father said, because of things that my grandfather said. In front of me, and thinking the entire time, that's horrible, that's bad, that's not okay. And knowing that I didn't want to be that ever, but then being surrounded with the men in my life and in my close proximity being racist, and being a child and not being able to say something back, but knowing that, I think I've told you this story, that my first boyfriend ever, it only lasted probably a week, but it was KT, and he was so dark-skinned and so beautiful, and I just remember thinking he was the most beautiful human I'd ever seen in my entire life, and we were dating at like 13, but I got told by my dad's girlfriend at the time, you can't date that boy, because of how my father would react. And so I broke up with him. Of course, I did not tell him why I broke up with him, but I just knew that was not, the messaging was very clear that was not okay. And I had to wait, I waited until I was a little bit more in my own skin before I did date a man of color. But I had to wait till I was at the house to do that.
Well, I think if you're thinking about the non-racist, anti-racist thing, that the first thing I think of with that story is like, it's probably good, because there has been a lot of there's been so much damage done by white people and seemingly good liberal white people to black people that maybe that was maybe that was for the best. You know, we were talking about the Nolan Wells.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know because I'm not a person of color, but having grown up around a lot of Native peoples, growing up in Alaska, there wasn't as many black people there. There are, but there were a lot of Native peoples, and you could see the damage that had been done to Native communities there by white people. And still there's a lot of communities that's really segregated. Like there's communities that are just Native where white people don't really live. But you know, I grew up in Anchorage, so that's different. But hearing that story and not having any idea, you know, nothing good happened to that poor boy.
No.
And I just think if I was a person of color, would I feel safe around white people? I don't think I would.
No.
And
why would you?
No, that's what I mean. Like if I was a Native person, if I was a black person, Asian, whatever, I don't know how safe I would feel around white people, because even well-meaning white people don't really inspect that. And what does it mean? And are we non-racist or are we anti-racist? Are we doing things specifically to speak up for marginalized communities, or like highlight like these people are doing the work over there, like if you need resources, look to them, or like listen to what they're saying, hearing, oh, these are the way these groups have created community, created mutual aid, done things to create a movement to better themselves. Like what can we as white people learn from that and do for our own communities? How can we end racism amongst ourselves? How can we, you know, what can we learn?
I would like to say to that point, I had a client in my chair who is, she's Indian, and she reframed something for me as well, or gave me something to think about that I had not thought about as well. She was like, she said, I'm so exhausted by like the expectation that of me to teach someone who's white. That it's like a demand on, and I was all, yeah.
I've heard that a lot.
That is not it's absolutely not your duty.
Yeah.
It's my duty to do the work, not yours to, I don't get praise for showing up. I mean, like, teach me. That's not, no.
Oh, yeah, because you're still demanding labor.
Correct.
That's the same problem we have with men who are like, well, I don't know. Tell me what you want me to do. It's like, can you not just look around and see the things that need to be done?
Right.
Yeah, that's just our version of doing it to other minority communities. Like, well, tell me. It's like, no. If you want to be anti-racist, figure out the ways in which things are not fair and start doing action to make it more equitable. Like even if it's just reviewing your own shadows and your own biases and seeing like, are there certain groups of people that I do feel less trusting around, or I have weird assumptions about? Like, are there stereotypes that I've, you know, been inoculated with me growing up in America that I haven't really inspected?
Right.
That's important work that we should be doing. Yeah. Yeah, I had gone back and looked. Oh, kitty break. Every time we do this, she's in there. I don't know if she's in the frame. Come here. There she goes. Kitty break is over.
Kitty break's
Hope
over.
you guys enjoyed it. I had gone back because I was like, when did this idea of whiteness kind of appear? And it seems like in the 1600s, the European settlers were immediately sort of classifying people into categories. And then the native peoples of this country were just completely not considered at all. And I got really excited actually because I had been reading about the Bacon Rebellion in 1696, and I was like, okay, it was European white people, poor people, women, black people who were at that point like slaves and indentured servants and that kind of thing, but we were all working together. And I was like, yes, we were all working together. There were thousands of us. What were we doing? We were trying to displace native peoples. So we were working together, but to displace native peoples from their lands and take over their land. Which is another thing that I learned it's crazy to me. I feel like I got so much Native culture growing up in Alaska. Like, everybody there knows what parkas are, they know what mucklucks are, umiak, you know, the kayak is a Native word. There's all these things that you're surrounded by, but then you go to school and you learn American history, and I had no idea that one of the bullet points in the Declaration of Independence was that we wanted native lands. And the king would not help us. King George had made peace with the native peoples, and George Washington, our people, were very angry because we were like, we want that land. It's ours, and we're taking it. And if England's not going to support us, we're going to do it our damn selves. I mean, I was taught about the Boston Tea Party, but I wasn't taught about that.
Right, exactly.
I had no idea about that. And I'm going, oh.
It was taxation without representation.
That's all I ever heard, which
right.
is true.
Right.
But it was also...
We want native land.
We want native land.
Mm.
You know? And it's like, oh, okay. So then as America evolved, that just kind of intensified until you get the one-drop racial purity, you get segregation, you get the Jim Crow era. You know, we go through all these iterations of just reinforcing whiteness, but it seemed to me like it had really started with that Bacon Rebellion, Nathaniel Bacon, and the colonial governor William Berkeley at the time, because there were so many people in this rebellion that the Crown, England, had to like step in and get involved to kind of squash it.
Together we can.
Yes, divide and conquer. So we're going to start creating laws, and we're going to really emphasize the difference between those black people over there and us good white people over here, so that we don't ever get together again and become any kind of threat to the government or the ruling empire.
Interesting.
And again, Native people were just completely discounted altogether because we didn't even consider them human, which is pretty ugly. But I think it's important for us to think about that history and to think about our whiteness and privilege. I know some white people in the country have a hard time thinking about the fact that they have any kind of privilege because they're struggling. That doesn't mean you don't have privilege. Like, everybody struggles, everybody suffers in their own ways, but does your resume automatically get flagged because of your name? Is it easier or harder for you to access housing because of it? You know,
are you having to spend more to change your hair to be professional?
Yeah.
And to get chemical services that are actually causing you cancer, starting at the age of like 6.
Crazy.
Like, because to blend in, to become closer to whiteness,
to that ideal, to the default,
correct,
which is white, thin, cis, able-bodied. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so insidious and colors so many, your entire existence,
every facet of life,
that I think I know that white people in general have a very difficult time understanding the full scope of it. I think I have a tip of the iceberg, and I know that there's so much that I don't know.
Yeah.
At the same time.
But it is our responsibility to do that work.
Yes.
Because what you and I are always talking about is showing up to the world with moral integrity.
Yes.
And if you're doing that, and if your goal, my goal, is to show up in a way in the world so that everyone around me feels safe. Everyone who's under my umbrella feels safe. They feel listened to. They feel cared for. I want everything to be more equitable. So I have to look at my own internal systems and make those changes to make that happen. And if you we had talked in one of our last podcasts about performative good versus actually doing good work.
Yeah.
There's a lot there to work with. There's
Yes.
a lot there to work with. And I don't think that, I just find it strange when people act like, I'm fine with the fact that I'm white. I don't feel guilty about being white. I don't hate the fact that I'm white. I love who I am. I'm fine with that. But I think when you do all the work of making yourself a moral person and showing up ethically in the world and making space for yourself to fully love yourself, that can't help but sort of filter and spill out onto everybody else around you. I want everybody around me to also feel that way.
Yes.
And to also be welcomed and to also be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know, it's important work.
I find it curious when we're talking about histories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of America, of a lot of countries, right? But in particular, when we're talking about white people and like slavery and racism, and why it becomes such a like, you're attacking me personally.
People get reactive.
I'm like, I've never taken, when someone has given me feedback about a blind spot, right? And taking the time, usually in a moment of like, I'm like, oh, I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed, and I'm embarrassed that I'm naive and that I'm uneducated and that I don't know, right? And it's embarrassing. And there's some shame in that, right, for me, but I've never felt attacked receiving the feedback, because like you, I'm like, no, if I have a blind spot, please tell me, because I want to be safe for my fellow human beings.
Yeah.
It's that simple. I'm grateful that they said something.
Yeah, but that takes a lot of emotional maturity and a lot of wisdom, because I've been in those situations where I've kind of put my foot in my mouth and I've done, some weird microaggression where I wasn't really considering things, and I felt it at the moment, like you said, and it was like really embarrassing. And I'm like, oh God, why did I say that? But all you can do is take that feedback and try to do better.
Right.
As an emotionally mature person, all you can do in that moment is go, I did something that was hurtful, I'm going to apologize, and then I'm going to do better. You don't have to continually beat yourself up over it, but you do have to stop doing the thing that's hurting people.
That part.
Yeah.
That part.
Yeah. You do have to be accountable for your actions, and like you said, this is not a uniquely American phenomenon. Racism exists all throughout the world, and certainly with all of the former British colonies, America just did such a bang-up job with it, with Native American genocide and slavery. But, you have Native peoples that are still at greater risk in Canada. Like, you have what the Aborigines went through in Australia. We had talked about Hawaii. Hawaii had its own fully functioning monarchy and government, and we just sort of came in and we were like, that's cool. Hawaii's dope. I want it. We're just going to take it.
Right.
Crazy. But yeah, do you have to, I'm going to go back to thinking about you saying you took that in and you didn't feel bad about that, because that maybe is something that's blocking white people. Because I know when I was more immature, there was more of a reactivity to being called out on things like that, and it did feel more like a personal attack.
I'm not saying it doesn't feel personal.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that ever changes. Like it feels, I'm like, it's personal, but it's like it's personal because I'm embarrassed, not because. For me, I'm like, I'm embarrassed. So it is personal.
Yeah. But how do we get to that openness? How do we get past that point? Because when there's wrongdoing being done, it has to get pointed out.
Right.
It needs to get pointed
Called
out,
pointed out.
And we need not have that reactivity. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to change. When you just have that reactivity and that defensiveness and go, well, I'm not privileged.
Or I'm not racist, or I'm not.
How do you get to the space where you have that openness to realize that you are doing some harm and to hear that? That goes back to previous conversations we've had, I think, because
I think for me, it's fairly simple. And actually, Kennedy and I had this conversation last night, hanging out in her room before we went to bed. And she was like, I always want to grow, and I always want to be a better person. I just want to keep growing and keep being a better person. And she and I are the same way. I think that you're also the same way.
Yeah.
And it's I think that for me, that desire to evolve and continually become better versions of myself, more aware, more educated, more empathetic, more compassionate, more I want to keep becoming better iterations of myself. That overrides how personal and shameful it feels, because I'm okay, this is a growth point. I can grow here. And this is uncomfortable, and this doesn't feel really good right now, and I'm embarrassed and honestly mortified. But I can either choose to grow, or I can continue to be this shitty version of myself, or this version, I say shitty, but this uneducated, naive, whatever version of myself, or I can take the hit now and be better. And I'll take the hit now and be better.
Yeah.
So it's, what do you want out of life?
Yeah. And that's using your grief or your weaknesses to make your art.
Right.
That's where you grow, is in those dark spots.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I was thinking about what does it mean to be white, because it is such the default in this country. I sort of had to get around it in the areas where I'm not the default to get a better perspective on it. Because if you're not, first of all, you should just be interacting with other cultures, other religions, other races, because the perspective is so helpful. You just need to be talking to other people. But if you're not doing that, I think one way that as I was just thinking about this by myself, was thinking about the ways okay, well, I've been a very poor person in this country. How does that felt when interacting with people who were wealthy? You know how sometimes when you talk to wealthy people, they're just well, I'm well off. They keep everything very tight. They don't necessarily want to interact with certain segments of the population because that's unsafe or whatever. They hold it sort of at arm's length.
You might catch it.
It does.
It feels like that to me.
It feels like that.
When I catch your pour.
It does feel like that. But this is something we do with whiteness that I've seen wealthy people do. Because I've spent some time with some very wealthy people. And one thing that I notice, it's all kind of not discussed, downplayed. There's sort of a distance there. And I do think we kind of do that as white people with whiteness too. When you have a certain privilege, it's we don't talk about it. We don't interact with the people that don't have that privilege because ew.
Right.
But we also don't acknowledge it. We don't talk about it. We downplay it. And I was oh, that's kind of interesting. And then I thought, well, what about thinking about it from a queer angle? What perspective could my queerness give me on that? And by the way, I'm not comparing being poor or being queer to any Black
being
experience,
a person, right?
or any person of color. I just
right.
don't have that experience. I don't know. But I do think as someone in the queer community, sometimes I feel like there's almost a jealousy that cis straight people have, like the ones that are really anti-LGBT.
Oh,
there's
sure.
There's like a jealousy. You're mad that it's so free and so colorful. There's ways in which that world is inaccessible to you and you're jealous of it. And I'm like, well, I think white people definitely do that with people of color, with like music and art and community and solidarity.
We take it all of the time.
Where we take it and we want to try it on.
Well, and use it and it becomes ours.
But then we distance ourselves from our own privilege and the reasons why the art and the music and the dance and the community and the solidarity had to coalesce in the first place because it was othered.
Correct.
Because they weren't allowed in the same spaces. They had to form that themselves. And I was like, ooh, so there is some jealousy there too. There's some covetousness. There's some desire. I had talked to you about Rebecca Nagel's podcast. She's a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, and she's got a great podcast called First America, from the Native Lens, about how in the early days of this country, there was a lot of Indian cosplay by white people, and it sort of like what we put on as Indian, putting on the war paint. You still see it now with like Coachella and the feathers and the whatever as like a symbol of freedom.
Right.
But that wasn't ours. We just co-opted it while simultaneously completely ignoring everything else. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to be aware of what we do with our whiteness. Mm-hmm. So that gave me a little bit of perspective. I was like, so we want those things. And then I was like, well, how do we just develop those things like within ourselves, within like, the party is always at the fringe, but what can we celebrate in the default without harming people? I mean, can we do that?
Now you pose an interesting question. I don't really have that answer. I don't really know.
Yeah.
That answer.
Or maybe the love and the celebration will just arrive if we can accept and appreciate all the different ways that people can exist without trying to take it on as our own.
I mean, yeah.
Because it also feels very American to me to not want to be told no. Like I can do whatever I want.
For sure.
Like it's just a costume. It's just a.
We didn't mean it like that.
I'm just appreciating. It's like, where is that line of actually appreciating someone's culture, but being aware that like not everything is meant for everybody.
Well, with hair, Kennedy has several years ago, but we were in a Georgie's Tacos, and there was a beautiful black woman. She had these gorgeous braids. Kennedy was calling them the goddess braids, but they were like tinier, and then there was like curls at the bottom. But she was like, I want to do my hair like that, and I was like, baby, I absolutely understand, and it is stunning. It is beautiful. She is beautiful. Her hair is beautiful. We're going to learn today about the difference between cultural appreciation and cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
I was like, that is not ours. Mm-hmm. It's just not. You will never be able to wear that in your whiteness. That's not ours to take. Mm-hmm. We can, however, look at that and say, that's really beautiful. That looks really good on her. Because the origins of cornrows, which I learned only a couple of years ago, in about proximity of whiteness, being white, that was framed as ghetto, that was framed as like dirty almost, of like ugly, of like poor, of less than, lower than. The origins of cornrows, do you know?
I think you told me about this. Was it the seeds?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, tell this because that's so beautiful.
So they, it's protective braiding, yes, and seeds were placed inside hair and then braided into the hair so that wherever they were being sold off
when
to
people were stolen from Africa
and being sold and all of those things, they had seeds to plant to be able to take care of their children and each other and their communities. Mm-hmm. We're literally caretaking. That's sacred. Mm-hmm. That's something that should be honored and worshipped, and that is culture and history that is rich in community and taking care of each other and grief and sorrow and beauty and pain and. Mm-hmm. That's not it is not dirty. It is not ghetto. It is not nasty. That is sacred. Mm-hmm. And it should be honored. Mm-hmm. So no, white people, you cannot wear cornrows. Mm-hmm. Like that's not ours.
And I also think there's, again, with that othering, there's always the white people that want to borrow those things, but again, just like with the wealth poor inequality, it's like you don't want to live.
No.
To quote Pulp, you don't want to live like common people.
No.
You don't want to be with common people.
Nope.
You just want to take some of those things
because it looks cool.
If
and
you're
cosplay it on.
If you're not interacting with the communities that you're appreciating with on a regular basis and being with those people and living amongst them and learning about culture and the differences, then why do you want to wear that? Why do you want to do that? That doesn't...
To try it on. Because it's cool. Because it's different. Because as white people, we are really lost on what our culture is.
Yeah.
Right? And I think there is a longing for that.
There is.
But that doesn't mean that you get to take...
somebody else's.
From someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. A former girlfriend of mine is Latina, mm-hmm. and she said something to me that kind of stopped me in my tracks because I like to make a lot of different ethnic foods. I mean, I love food from all over the world. I
really do.
I'm a foodie. I love food. And I'm like, oh, have you tried this kind of food? Have you tried that kind of food? Have you tried that? And she's like, no, I don't. I have my own culture. I don't need to go get everybody else's.
She did not.
I was like, I mean, you're right, though. I was like, damn.
That's why that hurt. It's because it's true.
It did. I was like, oh, yeah. And then I think about that with whiteness, too. I think there is a lot of grief about how much we lost culturally by being this generic default when we made this Faustian deal with the devil to be like, oh, we're white, we're the best. But there's no white language, there's no white culture. We all came from different places. My last name is Welsh. What do I know about the Welsh language or Welsh culture or Welsh anything? Nothing. We traded everything for just generic whiteness. What's that?
I think that's what I was going to say. Is like, I think because if you think about Germans, right? Mm-hmm. Like they don't have the same, seemingly from what I know, but because they still have German heritage, mm-hmm. right? I'm like, oh, what whiteness? What would we cook? And I'm like, oh, bratwurst. I'm like, I'm okay. I'm actually okay. I don't want sauerkraut. It actually does not taste
okay,
good
I do like so sauerkraut.
Look,
no disrespect Germans, but
sorry,
yeah,
Germans.
I'm with you. The schnitzel and all, I'm like,
I'm okay.
She good.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what you would consider Irish food because which is really sad because I'm definitely so much part Irish.
Yeah.
Right? But
and squeak.
I have no idea. I don't even know what that is. I would have to educate myself. I don't even know, right? Yeah. But like, yeah. I mean, think about all of the different cultures. We became such a melting pot of whiteness. Like before the podcast, you and I were even talking about a younger client of mine by about 10 years or so, and like in that 10-year gap of Texas education, I was like, I remember learning that when the Irish came over, it was no blacks, no Irish, and then mm-hmm. no Chinese, mm-hmm. right? Like I saw the signs and was so shocked mm-hmm. because the joke in my family was I look like I belong in an Irish pub, with my hair, and it was like long, and I mean like kind of what it is now, and I looked like I belonged. You would see me in an Irish pub somewhere as your barmaid, and I was shocked by, what do you mean? And like our ghettos were literally right next to each other, and so anyway, I was like, there is no culture.
Yeah.
But like when you are in more like German, or even the Brits, even like they have native cuisine, native music, native to their culture, to their
Well, if you're closer to that, if you're a second generation Swede or something, if you're a second generation, third generation, whatever, anything, there is still some of that. But the Americans white Americans who have been here, since the 1700s, 1800s, I don't even know when my people got here, but it's been a long ass time.
Right.
There's no connection to any of that. And there is definitely American culture, and I love this country. Don't love everything we're doing.
Oh, correct.
But I do love Americans, and I do love this country, but I think one of the greatest things this country is that we're a melting pot of all these different, we had wave after wave. We had in the West Coast, we had all the Asian immigrants and the Chinese building the railroads. We had the Irish and the Italians, and in Texas, you've got all the Czech and German immigrants here. We've got people from all over the place. Minnesota, I know they have like big Somali refugees. When I was growing up in Washington State, there were a lot of Vietnamese, there were a lot of Ukrainian. You just have people from all over, and I think that's part of what makes America so cool, is that we were kind of able to do that. But going back to the whiteness idea, yeah, all of those waves of immigrants, they weren't white. They weren't considered white. The Irish weren't considered white. We've got Italians in my family. They weren't considered. The Wops, they weren't white. Right. We didn't consider them white. Greek people weren't considered white. And everything slowly people started to assimilate as other waves of immigrants came in, and then they were kind of conditionally white, and then now we would just say like most Italian descendants or Irish descendants,
we'd call them white.
We'd call them white. Although funnily enough, we don't do that. People with Asian heritage or African heritage.
I have a hot take on the Asian heritage though. Like have been wondering recently if that's going to be the next wave that is assimilated
into whiteness. Maybe, because you do have the problem of like white people again. White people, why are we like this? Treating Asians as sort of the stereotypical good other.
Right. It's like they're smart, they're quiet, they're studious, their women are well behaved.
They don't make a fuss.
They're smaller framed even. Like, right? And then you have like the rise of all the tech bro and all that kind of stuff. It's like, oh yeah, they're good in engineering and computers and right? And so it's seen as like closer, yeah, let's bring them in. Right? But again, it's to create, not to take it back to the patriarchy, but truly, it is to create this hierarchy of so that you can other.
Yeah. Right?
It's to keep people from coming together. At one point, I had a conversation with Kennedy when we were talking about, like, it's my, during Black Lives Matter, all of those things, there were certain conversations that I was really just, like, not, had the privilege of not discussing with my child, and that is a privilege. That white people, if you don't realize, that is a privilege, that at a very young age, parents of color are having to have conversations that are that would horrify you about how to behave around
about the dangers of the world.
Yes. What they need to look out for, where you need to put your hands, how you need to behave, what you need to act, like where you should be, where you shouldn't be. I mean, right? So during the Black Lives Matter movement, and I was like listening to some people talk about things that were happening, and I was like, you know what? Actually, they're right. If parents who have children of color, right, or having to have these conversations already. It is not too, my child is not too young to have these talks. Mm-hmm. We need to start having conversations now. Yeah. And so I started having conversations. This past year, she and I were talking, and I was explaining why humans, mm-hmm. right, like our physical body, like I have a lot of Irish roots, and then I have, you know, Native American, right? I think there's some German in there somewhere as well, but I've got a heavy dose of the Irish coloring for sure. But I was like, my skin is, I'm vitamin D efficient, is what I like to say.
Aren't we both?
Yes. I've had sun poisoning more than once in my life, yes. Yep. But if you look at Ireland, where is it on a map? How far away from the equator, right? Mm-hmm. My nose is more narrow, mm-hmm. so that as I'm breathing in, air can warm up it gets warm before it hits my lungs, mm-hmm. right? It's rainy there a lot. It's fairly overcast. I need to be vitamin D efficient, right? If I'm an animal living if I'm an animal living in that area, I've got to be able to absorb what I need for my body quickly. Mm-hmm. I've got to be able to warm my lungs. The closer you get to the equator, the browner your skin mm-hmm. becomes, and your nose starts to widen out, mm-hmm. because the air actually needs to stay cool mm-hmm. at that point for your lungs.
When the
right?
sun's that hot, yeah.
Yes. And she said, we're really just animals. It was like, we're really just animals that were intelligent enough mm-hmm. to develop transportation that moved us around the world quicker than evolution could keep up with. Mm-hmm. So you have people like me where I'm like in Texas and I'm going to die by stepping outside. I'm going to combust into flames. That's it.
That's it.
It's really that. And so we've created these separate groups mm-hmm. to other each other, to create a hierarchy. But we would be remiss to think that it has such implications on people's day-to-day lives, mm-hmm. interactions and experiences in the world.
Yeah.
And so it's incredibly important to shut up and listen, to mm-hmm. seek out, read Angela Davis, read Bell Hooks, read Toni Morrison, please Maya Angelou, please read mm-hmm. People of color, and just open your eyes and ears to how their experience is different mm-hmm. than your own whiteness.
Well, you just said something really important at the beginning of that, though, that I want to point out, because I think that's working toward anti-racism, is noticing, at this point in my life, I don't want to compare myself to people of color as they've got it worse, so I don't want to do that anymore. Mm-mm. But what I do want to do is see the ways in which the systems that are created serve us differently and point yes. that out.
Yes.
So you're right to be teaching your daughter, because I think all of us should be teaching our white children, if we have white children, the ways in which things are different mm-hmm. for peers that they have who are not white.
Yep.
How the experiences will be different. Making that knowledge known.
Right.
Oh, not everybody shows up and has the same experience in life. That's something that you need to be mindful of. We had talked about this before with the patriarchy and that system, and how girls are educated and brought up, and you having a daughter, the things that she has to know for her own safety.
Yeah.
But I have that same responsibility, having a son, to say, these are the things that happen to girls. This is what you need to be aware of. This is why they may react that way. This is the struggles that girls face that are different from what boys face, because boys have their own struggles.
Yep.
But these are the ways in which you are treated differently, and you need to be aware of that in order to be a good person, to not other them, to not put them in dangerous situations.
Right.
We have to do that as white people too. For
sure. And it's not I don't think that you're doing this with Jonah and the boy versus boy girl experience, mm-hmm. nor am I doing it with Kennedy and the racism experience. I'm like, I'm not asking you to apologize for how you were born. No. I'm not asking you I am demanding of you awareness and sensitivity and the willingness to receive feedback that like that's not helpful or that someone is going to have a different experience than you. I am demanding that you do that education and continue to do that work because I demand that you're a good human in the world. Just period. Yeah. I'm not raising someone that's doing damage. Yeah. As much as possible. We all do damage unwittingly, unknowingly, but you won't do it intentionally.
Yeah. Well, and that's again going back to the moral integrity. If you want peace, you can't start with a sense of war internally. You can't show up to the protest angry and screaming, demanding for peace, because the peace has to start here. It all has to come from a loving place. Like, there's a beautiful Frederick Douglass quote, which I wish I remembered, but I think about it lately with the ICE situation that this country is in about, everyone's children. Every child is my child. I take every child as my child. And I feel that way as a mother. Like, I want every child in this country to feel loved and feel protected. I really, really do. All of what we're doing, all of this work has to come from a place of love. And then that maybe kind of answers the question I had earlier about white people specifically, who do feel defensive and do feel attacked. If you're bringing these issues to light from a place of love and saying, I'm not talking about you specifically as a white person, as a white individual. I'm talking about the system of whiteness.
Yes.
Which is used as a means to separate, categorize, hierarchically, control, demean, belittle. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about you working your 9 to 5, barely making it. Like that, I get all that. I'm talking about the system in place. That's what we need to look at.
Do you know that there was a young man, a child, 16 or 17, I think, that was killed this week in an Austin park. He was shot by police.
Really?
Yeah.
No, a baby?
A baby was shot and murdered by police, by APD. I guess people were saying, like, in the comments that they've released the 911 tape. I don't know how that's happened so early, but they were able to choose to have, like, mental health services respond, the caller, whoever it was, mental health services or police to respond, and they chose police. And I'm like, why are we doing that?
For a child?
So this is, white people, listen up, right? It was someone, I'm sure, that was unaware of their own biases, or aware and didn't give a shit, right? And saw this child and viewed them as a black man instead of a child, right? And said, no, police need to come. And officers responded by shooting him. And what they found was a water bottle. They assumed it was a knife or something. And they murdered this child in a park here in Austin on July 24th.
And that's a perfect example of why we have to think about our own whiteness and the effects of
whiteness. And
yes,
your own,
and the biases, like that kid's just being a child in public while black.
Right. But viewed as a threat because he's a black male, right? Yeah. I mean, I shared with you my client who, it's an interracial couple. The dad is black, mom is white, and I had cut the son's hair twice before that. Young child, still going to like daycare-y things, not even in pre-K quite yet. Maybe he was pre-K at that point. And it was the third time I was cutting their hair. And my client, who I've done her hair several times, said, well, like, I had to make sure that the dad was here too, because like I got in trouble the last time we cut his hair. And so the dad was the one like leading the consultation of like, what are we doing? What are the things, like, where do you want it? Those kinds of things. And the dad was showing me some photos. And then I was just asking some questions, as I do, because I'm me. I'm like, what happened? Where was the disconnect in the last cut? And all of that. And the mom had said, I made it too short. We took it too short. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, hey, can I ask, like, why? Like, what is it? And the father proceeds to tell me, this grown, large, and by large, I mean, like, just like muscular even, like, just like a man that could, like, lift heavy things, right? Mm-hmm. But someone that you would think of and think strength, right, is telling me that so long as he can keep this baby child, Lindsay, this little boy, looking as effeminate as possible,
he's safer.
And of course I start crying because
that's the world we live in.
Because that's the world we live in, and I'm like, how fucked up is that?
Yeah, it is.
That they're in a fight over this haircut. I have no clue because I'm white. Mom had no clue because she is also white.
We wouldn't have to think about that.
Right. And dad is having to explain to me. And then the father is apologizing. I'm sorry, that's upsetting. And I was like, please do. It is not your job in this moment to emotionally care. Like, please do not take care of me. That's not your job right now. I'm thinking, you went through that as a young black man. Mm-hmm. And then you're terrified as a parent for your baby, knowing he's going to be put in timeout more. He's going to be viewed as bad. And I asked him, I said, was there a difference? And he said, yes, we got more phone calls when his hair was shorter. And he was put in timeout more.
Yep.
Because his hair was shorter. And I was like, what the fuck? White parents don't have to, you don't have to think about that.
You just completely take it for granted. Well, the school system is also a system with people who work there who have bias.
Absolutely.
And then that's how you get kids that are seen as more aggressive, more disruptive, more whatever.
They're a problem child.
Who become a problem, and then from certain neighborhoods or certain children, you get on that school to prison pipeline.
Well, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, mm-hmm. right? If I get told over and over and over again, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm in trouble, I'm aggressive, what do I become? There's so many
because
psychological
even if I'm
studies
doing what I'm supposed to be doing, you're still telling me I'm bad.
That's what I'm saying. There's so many studies that show repeatedly what kids are told, taught, said. It becomes it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Even down to, and I can't remember if I've shared this in the podcast or not, but it was my second year teaching at the beginning of the year. My principal, he became Dr. Hewitt, but Jason Hewitt at the time had gone. He came back and we were doing like professional development, and it was one of those moments where my bubble of whiteness was burst, mm-hmm. and I was grateful for that growth opportunity. But he said you need to look at your seating charts because white teachers put black kids of color in the back of the classroom. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm not racist. I don't do that. I treat all of my kids the same. Lindsay Evans, girl, I went and looked at my seating chart. No, your girl guilty. I went home that night. I erased. I started the fuck over. I said, all of my baby, they're coming up. I'm bringing you up. Mm-hmm. Like, I cannot believe that I had I was blind.
Yeah. And
that doesn't make me inherently wrong or bad. It means that I'm naive. It means that I'm privileged. It means that I'm unaware. But it's my job when I'm met with that information to change. And to be aware and then to educate others.
Yeah.
Right? Of like, hey, did you not know? Do you know? Did you know?
Mm-hmm.
You need to be aware. Here's your blind spot. Let me help you out.
Mm-hmm. And to continue our own education, just because there are going to be things that we don't know. Part of the reason that I even thought of why should I think about whiteness is because we're feminists. We talk about feminism a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And when the feminist movement started, it just wholesale left behind women of color.
Right.
And then in the second wave movement of feminism, there were a lot of Black and queer feminists who kind of made that known, like, hey, we're women too. you're not taking us into consideration. A book that came out during the pandemic that I just recently read, which is a perfect book on this topic, the feminists and intersectionality, is called Hood Feminism by Mickey Kendall, I think is her name, where she talks about that we have to keep educating ourselves to these things, because if you're not really involved with other communities of that most people do primarily hang out with people that look like themselves.
1000%.
That's true. Unless you live in really dense urban areas, and then sometimes there is more, just because there's more variety of people kind of mixing, but people just naturally do kind of self-segregate. I'm telling you, if you're white and you hang out with mostly white people, you're going to have to do the work of seeing these other perspectives.
Yeah.
But this book, she had talked about even just as simple as feminists saying, believe women, which is something I've definitely said when sexual assault or survivors, rape survivors, whatever, I'm like, believe women. And she makes a point in the book, how many times were white women believed and black men specifically were killed, were lynched, whatever, because we're not taking race into consideration. And I was like, oh, right.
Damn.
Right.
Damn.
And that's why we as white people
have to do the work.
Have to continue educating ourselves. Because I wouldn't have thought about that.
I wouldn't have either. Dude, but of course, Emmett Till, I taught English. We would have a whole... That was my precursor before we taught To Kill a Mockingbird, is we would talk about Emmett Till. And that was a baby. A baby. He was a baby.
Well, and I think, I might be misremembering or remembering a different case, but wasn't the woman that initially said, wasn't that later found out to be completely false?
Yeah, like
years
on her
and years
death,
after,
like
she
on
was
her
like,
deathbed.
oh yeah, that wasn't true.
On her deathbed, she said that it never, nope, it was not true. And that baby was horrifically murdered. And tortured, not just murdered.
Yeah.
That was not a quick shot to the head. That was not a quick anything.
Tortured.
That baby was tortured to death. That child, so real clear, was tortured to death.
Because of a white woman's insecurity.
Because of a white woman lying.
Yes.
Because of her biases, because of her view, because of her proximity to white, cis, male. Because if the closer I can stay to this, at least I'm better than everybody else. Beneath me. Beneath me. It's like, no, baby. You're never the standard either.
I don't know the story that happened in Austin that you're talking about, but I can guarantee that whoever's calling the police on a child, there are those uninspected biases, and because of that, a child is murdered because what? You were fearful because you saw somebody brown walking in the park?
Not to mention police officer, training, lack of bias, like the same thing. It's like, yes, teachers, but having inherent biases, but so do police. Everybody
does. Everybody. I'm sorry, but if you are an American, this is just the soup that you've been bathed in. It's the culture. It's where we came from. We started this country on Native American genocide, and then developed the wealth through slavery.
Right.
That's a fact. So we all have to do the work of investigating that if we want to live in a more equitable world. We just have to. We as white people, that is our responsibility. We're not all on the hook for slavery and Native American genocide. We didn't individually do that. But we are responsible for investigating our own biases if we want to be moral people. We are. I've said that from a feminist lens. Men, you're not every single man is a bad man. But if you don't look at the ways in which women are marginalized and hurt, if you don't speak up and do things to not be that guy, then you're on the hook for that. And that's the same is true for white people.
There's a podcast, and honestly, I follow their social media content, Pink Pill RX, and
oh yeah, I've seen some of their content.
So good. She brought up a point with her husband. She said, good men also have to acknowledge the ways in which they have profited off of the bad men.
Yep.
And I think about that's the same for whiteness as well. It's like you have to look at, like, your standard is lowered on what it means to be a good person because of racism, because of all of the bad people, because of and white people that are like not racist but aren't like actively anti-racist. You're benefiting too from the bad.
Absolutely.
You're benefiting from racism and from the racist, because your standard of like being a good person is lowered.
And you don't get off the hook for that because you're a white woman, or because you're white and queer, or because you're white and poor. You're still on the hook for that.
Right.
Even if you are marginalized in other ways, you're still benefiting from whiteness.
Right.
Yeah.
I can get pulled over by the cops and not be fearful that I'm going to be shot.
Yes.
I do not have to make sure that I'm keeping my hands exactly where they need to be, on the steering wheel.
Yep.
I'm not afraid to reach for my wallet as they're walking up. I'm not afraid of doing those things. That would be very different if I were a person of color.
Yes. In fact, I will say I've had instances, one instance in particular, where I popped off getting pulled over. I was angry and I popped off at that officer, and years later I was like, wow,
that was privilege.
That was some serious privilege. First of all, that was crazy to do, but that was some serious privilege because no person of color could ever.
Nope.
But I've also been in a situation where I've literally had Texas state troopers pull me over, drawn guns on either side of my vehicle, and I was in the car with my wife at the time, who is a person of color, and they're like, "Who's your passenger?" And I'm like, "What?" I just said her first name because I was so confused as to what was happening. Interesting. And it ended up being okay, but it was real scary. It was real scary. But that's not something that we normally have to think about as white. There's so many little things that you don't have to take into consideration. You have to listen to minorities. You have to. You have to hear what they're saying. You have to take it into consideration. You gotta grow. White people, we gotta grow. Racism is so corny at this point. It's so old. Like, we gotta be better than this, America.
And it's okay. It's okay to feel shame. It's okay to feel hurt by it. It's okay to feel guilty. I think those are all natural, good. There are no bad emotions, but those are all. You can view it as a positive. Like, this is a place where, like, I want to do better.
There's growth there.
That's why there's guilt. That's why there's shame. That's why there's embarrassment. It's like, oh, this isn't something that aligns with who I think I am or who I want to be. So use that as a catalyst to do the work. It doesn't make you a bad person to have blind spots, but completely leaving blinders on does in fact make you a bad person.
It does. And it's 2026. We can do better. We
can
all grab hands and all collectively pull ourselves up. There's no more bootstraps. We're grabbing hands. We're all coming up.
I love that. No more bootstraps.
That was Mickey Kendall said that.
In Hood Feminism?
She said it in an interview I watched with her while I was reading the book, and I was like, that is exactly right. There's no bootstraps. She said, you're grabbing the person behind you and pulling them up. Yep. And I'm like, that's how we do it. If we want to be moral people with moral integrity, we have to be concerned with everybody's well-being. If we want to say that we're feminists because we care about women, we got to care about all women. We got to care about all the children, all the people, everybody. And I'm even including white men in that too, because I feel like sometimes when we have the discussion of racism or patriarchy. It's like, we hate white men. I don't hate white men.
I don't hate white men
I like
either.
them so much that I made one come out of my body.
Right.
Like, white men, you're great too, but we got to make sure that it's safe for everybody. We've got to make sure that everybody's included in the conversation.
So there are good white men out there that are doing the work, both in the feminism sector and the race sector. They are meeting those biases and deconstructing them, right? It's the openness to making the change.
Yeah.
Hood feminism has been on my list for
It's
a
good.
minute now,
Yeah.
so like thank you for
Good work.
Yeah, I was like I'll do that.
Yeah.
Because it's been he's being
Cat
so
scratchy.
bad. He's being so bad. I'll read that promptly. Actually, is there anything else? You feel
I feel like we just kind of went off on a tangent, but I think we said everything we needed to say. Just look at your own biases, friends. Look at your own biases. Read other perspectives. Talk to people with other perspectives. Don't just be non-racist. Be anti-racist.
He's anti-racist, meaning when someone of color is not in the room, you are still standing up and defending.
Still speaking up and saying, "Hey, that joke's not funny." Ew. It's 2026. We're not doing that anymore.
Right, shaming the person that's being racist.
Yeah, it's weird. We don't have to do that, white people.
Right. Really don't.
Yeah.
And keep doing the internal work. It doesn't make you a bad person. That actually makes you a good person.
Yes.
When you're confronted with that and you assess and make change, that actually is a sign of like...
Growth is uncomfortable sometimes, but 100% worth it. Yeah.
Oh, I love today's topic. Thank you for bringing that.
Too. All right.
All right.
Anything else?
No, it feels complete.
Love y'all.
Love you.